How many of you guys are wondering who this guy is? Anybody? This is Sam. Sam was the worship leader at our church in Hermiston when we started a church there about, I'd say, 10 years into it. Sam came on board and was such a huge blessing. And he's, you go through life and you have a lot of acquaintances, you have a lot of friends, and you have some best friends. And Sam's one of those to me. And he's just been there for me and with me through thick and thin, and it's always so good to hang out with him. And I don't laugh any harder in my life than when I'm with Sam. I mean, I can't. It's just it's constant. He's hilarious, and he's just. I just look at him now and start laughing. I don't. And so anyway, but he's just he's a great man. He's a great husband. He's a great father. He's a great guy, and we really thank him for coming today. And by the way, our kids they found their van. Isn't that crazy? I think they had just found it at the end of last Sunday, right? It's kind of like a drama playing out. We started the service with announcing that the van and trailer had been stolen. For those of you that didn't know, our kids are on a mission trip. The first night, the van and the trailer with all their stuff in it got stolen out of the hotel parking lot. And they found the van and the trailer with just not much damage. They think the guys were taking it to part it out, and they pulled it over, and they arrested a few of them. I'm not sure of all the details right now, but all the trailer was empty. So all their stuff was gone, and some of them had some nice stuff, but most of the nice stuff got taken out. So they had some of it, but they didn't have any of their work clothes. And they were going to work at the peach factory at Gleanings, and it's a dirty, nasty, sticky, juicy job. And so Jason had to go to Walmart and buy everybody's work clothes and buy everybody's bedding and buy everybody's, everything that you have to exist. That they bought deodorant for the girls, but middle school and high school boys don't even need deodorant, so that was good. Anyway, crazy story, but they're only like a couple of hours out now. They're almost back, and they've had just this crazy story, and we're going to hear all about that trip in 2 weeks from today. They're going to get up here, and I've talked to them a few times, and it's an amazing trip. Jason said it's one of the best mission trips he's ever been on, and he's been on a ton of mission trips. The kids are going to have so many memories from this, and God has done some amazing, amazing things. Jesus has been right there with them the whole way and taught them a bunch of cool lessons, and so we're looking forward to that. Next week, we have a special treat for you as well. Next week, you guys are going to hear all about the Latvia mission trip that just happened. And they got some amazing stories to tell. And we had a great team that went there. As a matter of fact, Chuck Kelly. How many of you remember Chuck Kelly? Yeah, good. He's going to be here. And he's going to be introducing that a little bit that morning. And he's semi-retiring-ish from what he says. And we'll learn a little bit more about that. But he's going to be here too. And so we've got all kinds of God stories this summer. And my mic broke this morning. That's why I'm holding this. And I'm sure it's not broken, but it's definitely not right. I don't know exactly what I did last week when I took it off, but it was all backwards and not pointing. I didn't know what was going on. So anyway, that's why I got this mic this morning. But I'm going to tell you the story today about Victory Baptist Church, which is the church that Joy and I started back in 2000. Back in 2000, Joy and I were fresh out of Bible college, and we had gone to one job in West Virginia that didn't work out very well. And but Joy, where did she go? She's in here somewhere. She's on the computer. She loved West Virginia. It was hard dragging her away. It really was. And she loved it so much. And we were in southern West Virginia. And how many think in your mind you have what stereotypical West Virginia is? Somebody name something. What do you think stereotypical West Virginia is? Oh, my word. You guys are speaking in tongues. What was that? Moonshine. I heard moonshine. Anybody? Losing football team. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm cooking today, so I hope you come over. It's true, though. What else? Hollers. Dulcimer. My mom has a dulcimer. What's that? Hot Rod Hundley, yeah. Basketball player, yeah. Jerry West, the logo, yeah. Randy Moss. We have some decent people. Jason Williams, yeah. This is fun. Let's just do this. Dentists, yeah. They just give you some moonshine and just play some classical music and pull your teeth out. It's great. But all that is sort of where we lived in West Virginia. It's not where I grew up in West Virginia, but it's sort of where we lived, and it was a lot of hollers, a lot of crazy stuff, and it didn't work out, so we moved out west, and we went to Pasco, Washington, where Joy grew up, and then we told a little bit of that story last week, we ended up down in Hermiston, Oregon, and started a church. Now, I'm not just going to tell a story. I want to try to make a point. The thing is, we learned a lot through that. This doesn't have anything to do with us knowing this going in or me deciding that I was going to do these things going into it. It was the fact that God taught us these things, and even though it's still not easy to live out, he taught us some of these lessons as we went through this process of starting this church. It was wild. We started the church as an independent, fundamental Baptist church. So we were King James only, and so that meant we only used the King James Version of the Bible. Women were highly encouraged to only wear certain types of clothing, like skirts below their knee, and we sang out of hymn books. And not that there's anything wrong with any of those things on their own if you want to do them, but the fact that we kind of mandated, it was just a different situation. I'll put it that way. And God started changing our lives. And I talked about that last week when I talked to my friend and we asked the question why, and God started slowly changing things. And there was some things that we learned through that transition process. So what happened was we started off with about 40 people, and we were up to about 50 or so, and things were going pretty good. And then I started on this process of God kind of changing us. And I didn't know what to do with that because most of the people that were coming to the church were there because we were a certain way. And God was changing us. And so we were trying to pastor people through this and trying to take things slow and trying to help other people ask the question why, right? We were trying to do that. But what happened was everybody has their point, their kind of, they're non-negotiables, if you will. A lot of people that go to church have their non-negotiables. Some are well-intentioned, some are correct. Some are correct. Some of our non-negotiables are correct. Some of them, are in different spots, but we all have them. And what happened was, through that process, we built that church from 50 all the way up to about 7. And so we were at about 7 people, and I remember we had this big push one Sunday. We went and we knocked on a bunch of doors, and we handed out a ton of flyers, and we did all this stuff, and I came in, and I was so excited about church that morning because we handed out, I forget how many thousands of things we handed out and everything else. We came in that morning, and I remember there was 5 people sitting in the thing after all that. And not only that, I felt like we were doing the right thing. I felt like God was taking me towards a better spot as far as His grace and His mercy and His love and taking the shackles off of people and really living in the freedom of Jesus and what all that means, and all that was exploding in my head and my heart, and I was loving that, and at the same time, I'm failing miserably, I think, right? And I remember sitting there, and I went to the bathroom. And I went to I disappeared to the bathroom. I didn't go to the bathroom. Anyway, sorry. So That was an odd thing to say, wasn't it? I just remember where I was. It was a small building. You couldn't get away. So I was standing in the bathroom, and I remember having this, I was yelling I was just mad. Yeah, have you guys seen Forrest Gump? Remember Sergeant Dan when he has the meltdown and he's yelling at God in the middle of the storm? It was almost like that. I was just like, we're doing all this stuff. I'm clearly awesome and you're not, or whatever it was. I don't remember what the argument was. It was nonsensical, but I didn't know what else to do. I was at my end. And I just didn't know how to take it from one place to another. I didn't know how to do any of that. I wasn't trained to do anything to begin with, let alone trying to transition a church from kind of one place to another. I was ill-equipped, ill-able, and everything else. And I was just upset I'd failed in my head. And as I was sitting there speaking, I remember one lady that came to our church who had came to know Jesus through we built a relationship with her. She came to know Jesus. She came in late. She always came in late. And she walked up, and she walked right up into the front and sat down in the front and was so into that message and so into what was going on there and could care less about how many people were there. And I thought, you know what? If she can do that, if she's that into it, I'll be that into it. And if it's just her, I'm cool with it. And so I kind of had that moment, right? Well, then what happened, probably a month later, I get a call from an independent fundamental Baptist church up in the Tri-Cities. And it's kind of in between. It's not quite as militant as I was used to, but it was still the same kind of thing, King James only and all this stuff. And they called me and they offered me a job. They offered me a job, and I remember the pastor came and he offered me a job, and it was like a living wage, which was something we weren't used to. And I remember sitting there and like being like, we should do this. We should do this. This is the answer. This is it. And we were going to go up and speak at their Sunday night service. And I was putting my tie on for the first time in about a year and a half. And I couldn't quite get it tied right. I used to be really good at that because I had to do it every single day of my life. And as I was putting that tie on, and this is like an hour and a half before service starts, I was putting the tie on, and I just took it off, and I looked at Joy, and I was like, I hate this. I'm not doing it. We're not going backwards. We're going ahead. And she's like, oh, thank goodness. I didn't want to do it either, but I didn't know I like money, or whatever. And so we were like, perfect. So I called him. This is an hour and a half before service, and I'm like, we're not coming. We're not in. We're done. And he's like, are you serious? You're supposed to speak. I was like, I'll come speak if you want me to, but I'm not. I'm done. I'm out of the job. I'm out of the running. And he's like, fine. Click. Hung up the phone. Last time I've ever spoken to him. Probably rightfully so. That's probably more a me thing than a he thing. But anyway, I don't know what to do. We're sitting there. We got a congregation of 5. Easter's coming up. Like a week later, Easter's coming up. We walk in the building on Easter Sunday, and we have probably 10. We doubled in size. And one couple walks in. Milt and Robin Reynolds. Do you remember Milt and Robin Reynolds? Milt and Robin Reynolds walks in. Milt's got hair down the middle of his back, tied up in a ponytail, kind of T-shirt, jeans with one of them chains that hooks to so nobody can pickpocket you unless they rip your belt loop off or whatever. He has one of those on, and just not an independent fundamental Baptist for sure. And his wife's in jeans and just normal people. Well, as normal as you can be. And they came in and they sit down and they loved the service, and it was signaled a shift. It signaled a shift. It was the first time somebody had come in that was just not looking for something in particular. They just wanted to follow whatever. And it was from that point forward, after all that temptation to quit, all that temptation to go to a different job, all that temptation, not that I was spiritual at all in my thinking, that I remember. But God taught me something through that sometimes we have to go through the valley to see see what God's doing on the other side. You know what? And so he taught us about something. If I can get this thing going, I'm clicking like 100 times here. I'm looking at the screen. The back screen doesn't have it. I'm going to go stand in the bathroom again. Now you've seen the whole service. All right. I guess go to barbecue. It's time to eat. All right. So, now, there we go. That's what we learned. I need some of that right now. Contentment and perseverance. Contentment and perseverance. You know, it took me sitting there and finally seeing somebody who was all into that message and just saying, you know what? If she's into it enough, if she loves it and she's all in, I'm all in. I'm just going to be all in. And then it takes perseverance. And the Bible talks about both constantly. Look what the Bible says about it, about contentment. Philippians 4:10-13 says this, I rejoice greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. This is Paul talking to the church at Philippi. And he's talking about a gift that they had given him. And he says this, I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. How many, that's you. How many of you have been there on both places? Sometimes you feel like you got the world by the tail. Sometimes you feel like the weight of it's sitting on top of your chest. Right? That's how life works. It's up, it's down, it's all over the place. And the truth is, it's just a reality. Sometimes you're going to think that everything's super successful. Sometimes you think that things are super not. But what is God doing? We don't know. We just follow him wherever that path leads. That's why we stopped counting how many people were at church when we were at Victory. Somebody counts here. But what happens a lot of times is you look and you see a big number, you're like, oh man, we're super successful. And then you see a small number and you say, oh, we failed. It's like neither one of those things are true necessarily. It's God is doing something all the time, regardless of where you're at. Are you willing to follow him even when it's difficult? I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. This one isn't clicking now, Joy. So, got it. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. So what's the secret? I can do all things through him who gives me strength. I can do all things through Christ. I can do all things. If he's leading the way, I'm in. You know, I hope we should be in, because he can do things that blow your mind because you stuck to it, because you were there, because you were content and decided I'm just in and I'm going to keep on going. It says about perseverance. It says a lot about perseverance. Galatians 6, verses 7-10. It says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. That's pretty cut and dry, isn't it? We reap what we sow. And then he says this, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. If we don't become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. If we don't give up, You're going to see. There's something amazing about being in the same church for years and years and years and years and years. There's something amazing about watching people grow up and their kids grow up and their kids grow up. And there's something amazing about all that. And it's super, it's things that you would never reap if you're just bouncing from church to church to church to church to church. You know, to just settle in. And I'm not saying you have to stay here. Like I'm guilting you into staying or anything like that, but you should. But anyway, you'll reap what you sow. That's all I'm saying. But I'm just saying there are rewards to persevering, even when things aren't going the way you think they should. Right? Even when you think they're not going the way they should. Joy and I went on a vacation. I was very not content. This is in 2013, I believe. I was like not super content with being in Hermiston, and I was kind of frustrated with Hermiston, and my kids were getting older, and I was thinking, man, we should maybe think about moving or doing something. And we went up into the Rocky Mountains. Someone gave us a cabin for a week, and went up there, and we were hanging out, and we were reading a book. We were sitting on the deck. A bear was actually walking right across, and there were deer everywhere. It was amazing. And we were reading Tim Keller's book, The Prodigal God. And we were reading that book together on the vacation, Joy and I, and she would read a chapter, and I'd read a chapter, and we'd talk about it. And we came to this section on contentment. We came to a section on contentment. And both of us looked at each other. We talked about it for a few minutes, and we decided we're staying in Hermiston. It's our home. Let's just make it our home. We're done. And I had my information in to CB Northwest, because you fill out like this application thing, and then if church jobs pop open, CB Northwest kicks these applications to these churches so they can check on people. Well, I had done that. I'd filled that out. And so I went to the office of the CB Northwest office for a different thing, and I was talking to the head guy of all of this, and I told him, I'm out. I'm staying in Hermiston. He's like, oh, praise the Lord. I said, take my information out of the system. And he's like, all right. And so I went home. We built out our house the way we wanted it. We put a nice stamped concrete back porch with a fire pit in the middle of it. It was awesome. Awesome. Covered porch because Hermiston blazing hot. This is the most West Virginia thing I could think. We put an above ground pool in. Yes, sir. Above ground pool, and man, that's classy. You talk about property values skyrocketing, and we put that above ground pool in, and the kids were swimming. We'd sit out on the back deck and enjoy it, and my mom and dad lived right behind us, and we were just enjoying life, and everything was going great for about 6 months, and all of a sudden I get an email, and the email says, your information has been sent to Foundry Church in Bend, Oregon. And I'm like, how is that possible? Like I told him I didn't want I didn't want to be in it. And so I looked up Foundry Church's website, and I called the first name. I think it might have been Steve Toomey. I don't remember. It's been a while, and I don't remember exactly who I was talking to. But I called and I said, look, just so you know, my name wasn't in there on purpose. I don't know where you guys are at in the process, but I just wanted to be honest and forthright about it. And okay, cool, thanks. And he said, I'm not sure how the process works. We're just kind of starting it, something like that. And then we hung up the phone. The next day or the day after, I get a call, and the call is from, I think, the same person. And he said, I heard what you said that was an accident that we got your stuff, but are you interested? And I said, you know what? I had nothing to do with this. I'm as interested as you are. And I'm thinking that this is, they'll get some real candidates soon enough and figure, so I didn't think another thing of it. And then we set up a phone interview, and I interviewed, and I came to Joy, and I was like, I think that went really well. And I don't know what that means, but it felt like it went pretty well. And long story short, we end up here. But you know what? I felt like as I look back through the years and I look back through what happened, It took God getting me to a place where I was willing. And again, this isn't a brag on Trevor thing at all. This is me being hard-headed the whole time. But it took me to get to a place of contentment before God could take me where he wanted me to be. You know what I mean? When I wasn't content, I had to learn that lesson. And I'm still learning it for sure. But when you're content, then God can work. And when you're willing to persevere, then God can get you where you're at. If you're content, then you're willing to persevere and go through the hard times, right? That's some of the lessons that we learned. Hebrews 12:1-2 says this, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. Anytime something gets hard, it gets difficult, and we're tempted to just bail on our families, if we're tempted to bail on our church, if we're tempted to bail on relationships, if we're tempted to bail on a job, if we're tempted to bail on something else, look to Jesus first and foremost. Before you make any other decision, look to Jesus and see what he's doing. It may be that he wants you, and he's made the nest a little uncomfortable, and he wants you to go somewhere else. But it may be that he wants you to learn a lesson sitting there and going through whatever it is and persevering so you can see the beauty that lays on the other side of the hardship. When David came out and faced Goliath, nobody could see past Goliath. This massive human that was down there and well-trained and just a warrior and challenging everybody. Nobody could see past the giant, but right on the other side of the giant was victory. Right on the other side of the giant was victory, and David got that. And David said, look, he's not fighting against me. He's fighting against God, and there's no way he can beat God, and I'm going to go down. If none of you will, I will. And he went down, and he just grabbed a sling and a couple stones, and he went and used his giftings and went out and slayed the giant, and guess what happened? Victory was right on the other side of that. Sometimes when we're going through stuff, you can't see past the stuff, but trust me, there's beauty and victory and amazing things on the other side of the difficulty much of the time. But a lot of time, if we're not careful, we bail out before we're able to reap that harvest, right? In whatever it is. You see it in families all the time. People get moms and dads, husbands and wives get to a place where they're not content with each other, and sometimes it's justified. Sometimes maybe it isn't. I don't know, but sometimes when it seems like maybe it's not, it's worth fighting for, because you get to the other side of it and it becomes something better than you ever dreamed. But it takes contentment and it takes perseverance. Now, I ended up in Bend, Oregon. I don't know if you guys know that or not. I ended up in Bend, Oregon with you guys. Lucky you. I'm sure you're probably like, I wish you'd get a little discontented here or content. And, if someone puts my information to CB Northwest, I guess I'll know what's going on. But I ended up here. I love it here. It hasn't been always easy. We went through some pretty hard times the last few years. You guys have gone through some hard times with me, and it's been hard in a lot of ways, a lot of different angles. But we're here together, right? It's a good thing. Sam, on the other hand, Sam stayed in Hermiston. Still there. He just drove up yesterday. Sam has been through, he sat under me. He was my worship guy. Not mine, but he worked with me when I was there. Then the transition happened. He was a big part of the transition. They hired a guy named Dax to be the pastor. Dax thought a lot differently than I did. Probably maybe a good thing, maybe not. Not right or wrong. It's just different. Sam stuck to it. Sam and his family stuck to it. Dax ended up leaving. They just hired a new guy. Thinks different than Dax. Thinks different than me. Everything's, it works in a different way. Sam's stuck to it. So I want to hear from Sam a little bit from the other side of this contentment and perseverance thing. And so my big question for Sam is, what are some lessons, what are some lessons that you've learned? What are some lessons that you've learned from sticking to it and persevering through maybe some things that when the philosophies didn't quite line up, or when things would have been easy just to bail out and go somewhere else, or whatever it is, and you stuck to it and you're still there today. So what are some lessons that you learned?
Well, I think the most important thing is this up here, not the sunglasses, but the God stories that the church with a capital C isn't about us. So we had gone to Victory as refugees. I had worked at a church, and the non-negotiable for us was really, I needed a church family where my kids were important. We were in a place where only my kids existed. There were no other kids of that age, no care, nurturing for a married couple with 3 children was not existent, and so we ended up at Victory. But perseverance, one is our preferences don't matter. Our non-negotiable is church family and listening to God. The church family hasn't changed. A few people have come and gone, but the core people, the people who gather to want to do life together in a covenant community known as Victory Church, which has now had its name changed to Cornerstone Baptist Church.
Boo.
Yeah. But part of it is realizing your place. I was in a unique position where I never did the church hopping thing. When I had gotten married after college, my wife and I did visit some churches, like looking for the right church. But within 12 months of that, I felt called to ministry, and that looked like a U-Haul out to Hermiston to work 3 jobs to make ends meet. And so we were on mission mindset, and it wasn't really about our preference. The church needs a servant for youth. We'll go and do that. We have an issue with the care and love for our kids on behalf of God. We made a very difficult decision. So getting into a place where instead of church hopping, the church has hopped around us. And that was very difficult. Trevor saw great value and said, "Oh, this guy worked in ministry. Let's bless them. Let's bless him and his family with a little bit of financial compensation. He's here every week. We like that quality. He can't sing. You guys know that." Well, the first invitation was, "Hey, you guys are wounded. Come here, and if you ever feel like doing ministry again, we're open to it." Just a massive amount of love. Only one group of people, when my infant daughter had the flu, the first 6 weeks of her life, only this church, Victory, asked if we were okay. They sent a card. They prayed for us. And that was a big deal. So after Trevor's singing, he had invited music leading. So we did that. So we worked together, and we built church the way we would run it. Trevor's the pastor. I'm working hard to implement vision. God gave me a unique gift to assist, not to be the leader and the elegant one, but I can work in the background very well. And then Trevor leaving was hard. Huge change. People leave the church. New person comes. The interim period was terrible, because that's when everybody decides to come and complain to the interim about all the problems they ever had since the beginning of time. It was a terrible experience. Next, the church that had valued a team through compensation and setting them aside to work on the gospel didn't see the investment as necessary for an assistant. And that was difficult. Going back to doing one of the things Jason Fry said to me, I think it was 17 years ago, I'll never forget it, when he was in Hermiston, which is minister to what's in front of you. So I am not an agent of myself. I'm not an agent of my own story. I'm an asset for God, and that's what I started my church time with. And so the perseverance piece is sitting through discomfort, right? Unless somebody is rejecting the gospel from the pulpit, sorry about that, there are plenty of negotiables. I had realized that to persevere, I don't really need to care about what kind of music there is. I don't care about the chair I sit in. I do prefer air conditioning, but I can worship in a field. I don't care. I can worship with people who don't speak my language and look like me. And that's really the process there is doing what's in front of you, persevering, and not because of your own comfort. So if we're to lay down our life, take up our cross, and we're sitting in an uncomfortable situation, for me, it was my church was my employer, and I resigned from that, and then I went to church the next Sunday, and I got to sit there while nobody did my job. And that was hard, but that's not why I was there. So perseverance is focusing on the gospel, what you're there to do, and that not to take all the serious things too seriously.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. The amazing thing about all of this is if you do follow where God leads you, and you follow it, and you're all in, and you go, you're going to see some amazing things happen. No doubt about it. But those aren't the everyday. Those aren't the everyday. The everyday is it can be mundane, it can be slow, it can be frustrating, it can be difficult, it can be a lot of things. But think about what do you want what do you want to see done? Do you want to see your will accomplished, or do you want to see God take you and use you and do something amazing, and whatever that may be? And the truth is, sometimes we're not the ones that get to see the major reward from it. You know what happened at Victory after I left? It doubled in size. You know what happened here? We shrunk. I don't know. You guys do the math. I kind of blame the pandemic a little bit on part of that, but at the same time, sometimes you look at it and you think, man, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? Or what am I doing this or that? And you can't think like that. You just got to say, God, what do you have for me today? What do you have for me to do today? How can I be more like you today? And you just keep plugging away, and you just be all in and be okay with where you're at right now, regardless of whatever that situation is. And I know for some of you, that's very, very, very difficult. But if you just say, God, I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you. And I'm just going to be, I'm going to be content right where I'm at. And just watch what he does. And here's the thing. Even when we come to the very end of it, the very end of all of it, we get to be with him forever in the new heavens and the new earth and the beauty of his glory. We get to be there forever, And it's awesome. I love the fact that you guys stuck through everything that happened. I know it would have been easy for some of you to leave back when a lot of people left, but you didn't. And you know what? We're going to go together, and we're going to see some amazing things happen, and we're going to grow together, and we're going to learn together, and we're going to love together, and it's just going to be awesome, because you stuck to it. I was talking to a couple the other day that they said that at the time during COVID, when everything was crazy and everything was going wild, they said, we were this close to leaving. And they put their hands together. Like, there's no gap there. Like, we were this close to leaving. And then we decided that, no, this is our church. This is our church. And now they're all in. They put he put his arm around me and said, I'm so glad we stayed, and I'm glad you're my pastor. You know, and I wasn't looking for that, but I like it. It's weird. I'm in a weird spot. But here's the thing. It took them deciding, you know what? God, we're where you want us to be, and we're good with it. Even though it's frustrating, even though it could be hard, even though there's some things I have a hard time with, my church. I see the Powell family right here. And I introduced myself to them for the probably the 30th time today and asked them if they were new. And but I see the Powell family here. And every time I talk about something like this, I think of that family. How many pastors have you been through since you've been here? How many changes? How many? There were, I'm guessing, pews here when you got here. And now there's chairs. There was bright orange carpet and then green carpet. And then really weird bowling alley looking carpet, and there's all kinds of stuff, and there's different paints, and there's different stages, and then we just took and ruined everything and turned everything black and put lights up and you know, and everything else. But guess what? Still here, still sitting, still faithful, still. And there's so many of you. Look at Sharon and Al and all, yeah, so many, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but so many that have stuck with it through the years. Because you know what? It's not about whether I agree with every little thing or not. It's about where does God want me, and I'm okay with that. I remember Sharon was standing up here looking at the stage when we first changed it, and I walked up to her, and I was like, what do you think? She's like, I don't really like it, but I want to trust that you know what you're doing. And I'm like, I appreciate that. Change is hard. Things can be difficult, but persevere, be content, and let's just see what God will do with just a bunch of us imperfect people trying to follow our perfect God. Amen? Amen. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to sing you out of here because Sam just told me I can't sing. So, what I'm going to do is, how many of you are planning on going to the Mills Ranch right now to go eat some hamburgers and hot dogs and snow cones, and we're going to go up and down a water slide and get how many are in? Oh man, come on. Give more. We need more. Come out, hang out with us. You know, just take the time. It's God's will. And it's going to be good. It might take some perseverance to get through the heat and drive up north away from your house, and but be content with that thought and drive out there and go out the dirt road, even though you may have just washed your car. It's okay. I'll pray the dust don't stick, and then we'll get out there. And once you're out there, I guarantee, if you're one of those saying, "Yeah, I don't really want to do that," if you take the time to do it and you get out there, when we're all hanging out, because we're super cool people, you're going to be like, "So glad I did that." So glad I did that, all right? God, we love you. Thank you for the lessons that you teach us through our lives, and thank you for the stories that you give us to tell. Thank you for people like Sam who just want to minister to you wherever they are. And God, just what an example he's been to me over the years of just following you wherever that leads. And God, thank you for many men in my life that do that. And so God, bless our church. Lord, we're in this together. We're a family, and we do life together. And that's not always easy, and that's not always neat. It's a lot of times it's sloppy and hard and difficult, but that's the beauty of it. We're here following you. So be with us, guide us, lead us, help us have an amazing time out at the Mills. Thank you for them and their willingness to let us all invade their property. And God, help us have an amazing time. Keep us safe. Bless the food to our bodies, and just help it to be a great time of fellowship and relationship building. And we'll give you the praise for that. In Jesus' name, all God's people said.